The early morning sun had barely risen over the city skyline as Marcus Johnson pulled his delivery van into the parking lot of the towering Stellar Corp building. The clock on his dashboard showed 8:30 a.m., right on schedule, just like every other day for the past 3 months. He adjusted his navy blue uniform, making sure his name tag was straight, even though he knew it probably wouldn't make any difference to the people inside. Marcus was 45 years old, with kind eyes and graying hair at his temples that made him look distinguished. He had been in the delivery business for over 2 decades, building a reputation for being reliable and professional. But at Stellar Corp, none of that seemed to matter. As he grabbed his electronic tablet and the day's packages, Marcus took a deep breath. He knew what was waiting for him inside: the same faces, the same treatment, the same struggle to maintain his dignity while doing his job. The lobby of Stellar Corp was all glass and chrome, designed to impress, but for Marcus, it had become a place of daily humiliation. As he walked through the automatic doors, the security guard barely looked up, yet Marcus noticed how the guard's hand instinctively moved closer to his radio, something he never did when other delivery people came in. Sarah Williams, the office manager, sat behind the reception desk like a queen on her throne. She was in her mid-30s, with perfectly styled blonde hair and an expensive-looking blazer. The moment she saw Marcus, her smile turned into what he had come to recognize as her special expression, a mixture of contempt and forced politeness. "Oh, it's you again," Sarah said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I suppose you'd have more deliveries for us." Marcus kept his voice steady and professional. "Good morning, Ms. Williams. Yes, I have 3 packages for the marketing department today." 2 other staff members, Jenny from HR and Mike from accounting, were standing near the reception desk. They exchanged looks and poorly hidden smirks. Marcus could hear their whispered comments as he waited for Sarah to process his delivery. "Can you believe they keep sending him?" Jenny muttered to Mike, not quite quiet enough. "You'd think they'd have someone more professional." Mike snickered. "Well, you know how it is these days. They have to hire everybody." Marcus pretended not to hear, but each word stung like a paper cut, small but painful. He stood there, his tablet in hand, watching as Sarah deliberately took her time checking his credentials. It was a game she played every day, even though he had been coming to this office at the same time, with the same ID, for the past 3 months. "I'll need to verify these packages again," Sarah announced, picking up her phone and dialing the marketing department with exaggerated slowness. "We can't be too careful about security these days." Marcus noticed how she emphasized the word security while looking directly at him. He had 3 college degrees, including a PhD in business administration, but here he was, being treated like a potential threat simply because of the color of his skin and the uniform he wore. The minutes ticked by slowly. Other delivery people came and went, all white, and Marcus observed how they were processed quickly, with friendly chatter and warm smiles. Some didn't even need to show their IDs. Yet here he stood, waiting, as Sarah made another unnecessary phone call to verify his delivery. Finally, after making Marcus wait for nearly 20 minutes, Sarah stamped his delivery slip. "I suppose everything checks out," she said, sliding the tablet back to him without making eye contact. As Marcus collected his tablet, he maintained his professional composure. "Thank you, Ms. Williams." "Have a good day," he said politely, just as he did every day. Walking back to his van, Marcus felt the weight of the morning's interactions on his shoulders. But there was something different in his eyes today, a glint of knowledge, a hint of purpose. If only Sarah, Jenny, and Mike knew who he really was. If only they could see past their prejudices to understand that the man they treated with such disdain was more than just a delivery person. But Marcus knew something they didn't, and soon, very soon, they would learn a valuable lesson about judging people based on appearances. For now, though, he simply started his van and headed to his next delivery, carrying with him the quiet dignity that no amount of discrimination could take away. The morning started differently at Stellar Corp. The lobby was buzzing with excitement about an upcoming corporate visit, and the usual group of staff members was huddled near Sarah's desk, discussing their preparations. Marcus arrived at his regular time, pushing his delivery cart loaded with several packages. As he approached the reception area, he noticed Sarah was too busy talking to acknowledge him. She was wearing a new designer blazer and had clearly spent extra time on her makeup. Her voice carried across the lobby as she spoke to Jenny and Mike about the corporate inspection. Everything needs to be perfect, Sarah was saying, completely ignoring Marcus's presence. I heard the new CEO of Gateway Logistics might visit this month. This could be my chance for a promotion. Marcus quietly cleared his throat, holding out his tablet. The weather outside had been particularly hot, and small beads of sweat had formed on his forehead. He pulled out a handkerchief to wipe them away. Sarah wrinkled her nose and turned to Jenny. Did you see that? So unprofessional. They really should send someone more presentable. Her voice was intentionally loud enough for Marcus to hear. Jenny giggled and responded in an equally loud whisper, I know, right. And did you notice how he always tries to act so proper? Good morning, Ms. Williams. She mimicked Marcus's deep voice in an exaggerated, mocking tone. Mike joined in, puffing out his chest and pretending to hold a tablet. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Have a good day, he said, drawing more laughter from the group. Marcus stood there, his hand still holding the tablet, as the group continued their performance. He slowly reached into his pocket and pressed the record button on his phone. Something he had started doing 2 weeks ago when the harassment had gotten worse. Sarah turned back to him with a fake smile. Oh, you're still here? Well, we're very busy today with important matters. You'll have to wait. The recording caught everything. Their laughs, their cruel impressions, their dismissive tone. Marcus remained silent, his face neutral, but his finger pressed firmly on his phone screen, ensuring every word was captured. You know, Mike said, leaning against the desk, I heard these delivery companies are forced to hire just about anyone these days. Equal opportunity and all that nonsense. Sarah nodded in agreement. Well, that explains a lot. In my day, there were standards. She emphasized the last word while looking Marcus up and down with obvious disdain. The conversation continued as if Marcus wasn't even there. They discussed his appearance, made assumptions about his education, and even speculated about his background, each comment more offensive than the last. All of it was being recorded on Marcus's phone, creating an undeniable record of their discrimination. After 15 minutes of waiting, Sarah finally took his tablet. I suppose I should process this before he starts complaining to his company about discrimination or something, she said with a smirk. They're always so quick to play that card. Marcus maintained his composure, though his hand tightened slightly around his phone. He had faced discrimination before, but the blatant disrespect at Stellar Corp had reached a new level. What these employees didn't realize was that their words weren't just being heard, they were being preserved as evidence. As Sarah lazily processed his delivery, Marcus thought about the upcoming corporate visit she had mentioned. A slight smile touched his lips, gone so quickly that none of them noticed. He knew something they didn't, and their cruel behavior was only making the eventual revelation more powerful. There, Sarah said, practically throwing the tablet back at him. Now, if you don't mind, we have important things to discuss, real business matters that you wouldn't understand. Marcus took his tablet, gave a polite nod, and turned to leave. As he walked away, he could hear them resuming their mocking impressions of him, their laughter echoing through the lobby. But this time, their words didn't hurt as much. Instead, each insult, each cruel joke, each discriminatory comment was another piece of evidence safely recorded on his phone. Walking back to his van, Marcus pulled out his phone and stopped the recording. He labeled it with the date and time, adding it to a growing folder of similar recordings. Soon, very soon, Sarah Williams and her colleagues would learn that appearances can be deceiving, and that their actions had consequences they never could have imagined. Later that evening, Marcus Johnson sat in his spacious home office, his delivery uniform hanging neatly on a coat rack in the corner. He had changed into a comfortable cashmere sweater and tailored pants, his real wardrobe reflecting his true position in life. The wall behind his desk displayed his degrees, a bachelor's in business administration from Harvard, an MBA from Stanford, and a PhD in organizational leadership from Yale. On his large computer screen, Marcus reviewed the day's recordings, adding them to his growing collection of evidence. His executive assistant, Linda Chen, sat across from him, taking detailed notes as they discussed the situation at Stellar Corp. It's worse than we thought, Marcus said, adjusting his gold-rimmed reading glasses. The discrimination isn't just coming from one or two people. It's deeply rooted in their office culture. Linda nodded, her expression concerned. And to think, none of them have any idea they've been mocking the CEO of their parent company. She shook her head in disbelief. How did you decide to go undercover in the first place? Marcus leaned back in his chair, thinking about the decision he'd made 3 months ago. After Gateway Logistics had acquired Stellar Corp and several other companies, he had noticed troubling patterns in employee satisfaction surveys, particularly from minority workers and delivery personnel. Sometimes, he explained, the only way to see the truth is to experience it firsthand. These companies can hide their problems during official visits and audits, but they can't hide how they treat people they think aren't important. His phone buzzed with a message from the Gateway Logistics Board of Directors. They had reviewed his preliminary findings and fully supported his undercover investigation. The board had been impressed with his dedication to understanding the real problems within their newly acquired companies. Marcus opened his laptop and pulled up his personal file. The contrast between his two lives was striking. One photo showed him in the delivery uniform he'd worn today, standing beside his van. The other showed him in an expensive suit at a corporate event, receiving an award for business leadership. Same person, different reactions from the world. He clicked through more files on his computer, revealing his impressive career history. Before becoming CEO of Gateway Logistics, he had turned around 3 major companies, earned numerous business awards, and written 2 books on corporate leadership. His net worth was in the hundreds of millions, and he was regularly featured in business magazines. Linda, he said, please schedule a full board meeting for next week. Also, contact HR and legal. I want them to review all these recordings. As Linda made notes on her tablet, Marcus walked to his window, looking out at the city lights. He thought about Sarah Williams and her staff, about their cruel jokes and discriminatory behavior. They had no idea that the man they treated with such contempt was about to become their boss. Should I start preparing the press releases? Linda asked. This story could be huge when it breaks. Marcus shook his head. Not yet. This isn't about public shaming or revenge. It's about fixing a broken system. I want to give them a chance to learn and change. He returned to his desk and pulled up Stellar Corp's company profile. The office where he had been making deliveries was just one of many, but it would serve as an example for all the others. The changes he planned would affect thousands of employees across the country. Tomorrow, he told Linda, I'll make my last delivery as their regular delivery man. Next week, they'll meet Marcus Johnson, Ph.D., CEO of Gateway Logistics. He smiled slightly, remembering Sarah's excitement about the upcoming corporate visit. Linda gathered her notes and stood up. They're in for quite a surprise. Yes, Marcus agreed, but more importantly, they're in for quite a lesson. He looked at his delivery uniform one last time. Sometimes the best way to teach people about respect is to show them why they should have given it in the first place. As Linda left his office, Marcus began preparing for the next phase of his plan. In his delivery uniform, he had seen the worst of corporate culture. Soon, wearing his CEO suit, he would begin fixing it. The transformation of Stellar Corp was about to begin, and it would start with a revelation that would leave Sarah Williams and her staff speechless. The next morning, instead of making his usual delivery to Stellar Corp, Marcus sat in Gateway Logistics' main conference room. The large table was covered with documents, testimonies, and reports. His investigation had grown far beyond his personal experiences. Linda walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee, placing one in front of Marcus. The other delivery workers are here, she said quietly. They're waiting in the meeting room next door. Marcus nodded, taking a sip from his cup. Over the past week, he had secretly reached out to other delivery personnel who regularly visited Stellar Corp. The response had been overwhelming. 23 people had come forward to share their stories. Send in the first group, Marcus said, straightening his delivery uniform. He had chosen to wear it for these interviews, wanting the other workers to feel comfortable speaking with him. 3 delivery workers entered the room. There was James, a young black man who had been delivering to Stellar Corp for 6 months. Maria, a Hispanic woman with 2 years of experience, and Ahmad, a Middle Eastern man who had worked the route for over a year. All of them had similar stories to tell. They always make me wait twice as long as the white delivery people, James explained, his hands gripping his uniform cap tightly. And they check my ID every single time, even though I've been going there for months. Maria nodded in agreement. Last week, Sarah Williams told me to use the service entrance around back, even though all deliveries are supposed to go through the main lobby. When I refused, she threatened to report me to my company. Ahmad's story was equally troubling. They mock my accent, he said quietly. They think I can't understand them, but I hear everything. They make jokes about terrorism whenever I bring packages. Marcus recorded every testimony while Linda took detailed notes. The pattern was clear. Sarah Williams and her staff had been discriminating against delivery workers based on their race, ethnicity, and perceived social status. Opening his laptop, Marcus showed them his collection of recorded evidence. I've been documenting everything for the past 3 months, he explained, but I needed to know if my experience was unique. Why are you doing this? James asked, looking confused. They'll just deny everything if we complain. Marcus smiled slightly. Trust me, he said. They won't be able to deny this. He pulled out his Gateway Logistics CEO business card and handed one to each of them. The room fell silent as they read his title. You're the CEO, Maria gasped, her eyes wide with surprise. Yes, Marcus replied. And I believe it's time for some changes at Stellar Corp. Your testimonies will help make those changes happen. Throughout the day, more delivery workers came forward. Each story added to the growing evidence of systematic discrimination. Some brought their own recordings, others had saved threatening emails from Sarah, and a few had documented every incident in personal journals. By evening, Marcus and Linda had compiled a comprehensive report. The evidence was overwhelming. Delayed processing times for minority delivery workers, unnecessary security checks, verbal harassment, and discriminatory practices that violated multiple company policies and federal laws. Look at this, Linda said, pointing to a spreadsheet. The average wait time for white delivery workers is 3 minutes. For minorities, it's 28 minutes. That's not a coincidence. Marcus reviewed the final numbers. 23 delivery workers had reported discrimination, 167 documented incidents over the past year, 42 recorded instances of verbal harassment, and 15 cases of wrongful security reports filed against minority delivery personnel. Schedule the board meeting for tomorrow morning, Marcus told Linda. They need to see this before we proceed with the next phase. As he packed up the day's findings, Marcus thought about Sarah Williams and her staff. They had created a hostile environment that affected dozens of people daily. Their actions had hurt real people, damaged careers, and created unnecessary stress for hardworking delivery personnel. One more thing, Marcus said to Linda as she was leaving. Make sure our legal team is present at tomorrow's meeting. What we've uncovered here goes beyond simple workplace misconduct. We need to make sure our response addresses both the individual incidents and the systemic issues. The investigation was complete. Now it was time for action, and Marcus Johnson, both as a delivery man and as CEO, was ready to bring about real change at Stellar Corp. The morning of the corporate visit arrived at Stellar Corp with an air of excitement. Sarah Williams had made sure everything was perfect. The lobby gleamed, fresh flowers decorated the reception desk, and all her staff wore their best clothes. They had been preparing for this visit from Gateway Logistics executives for days. Remember? Sarah told her team, straightening her new designer suit, this is our chance to impress the new CEO. I heard he's coming personally to inspect the office. Jenny and Mike stood nearby, equally well-dressed and nervous. They had spent the morning practicing their professional smiles and rehearsing their prepared speeches about office efficiency. At exactly 10:00 a.m., the front doors opened. Sarah's practiced smile froze on her face as she watched a familiar figure walk in. It was Marcus, their regular delivery man, but something was different. Instead of his usual uniform, he wore an expertly tailored black suit. His confident stride and commanding presence made him seem taller than before. Behind him walked Linda Chen, carrying a laptop and several folders, along with 4 members of the Gateway Logistics Board of Directors and 2 people from the legal department. Good morning, Ms. Williams, Marcus said, his voice carrying the same polite tone he had always used, but now it held an unmistakable note of authority. Or should I say, good morning to all my employees? The color drained from Sarah's face. Jenny dropped the folder she was holding, papers scattering across the floor. Mike's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I don't understand, Sarah stammered, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the edge of her desk. Marcus smiled, but it wasn't the submissive smile they were used to seeing. Allow me to properly introduce myself. I'm Dr. Marcus Johnson, CEO of Gateway Logistics, your parent company. He paused, letting the words sink in. Though you already know me as your delivery man for the past 3 months. The silence in the lobby was deafening. Sarah's face had turned so pale that her makeup stood out starkly against her skin. Jenny had backed up against the wall, and Mike looked like he might faint. This can't be, Sarah whispered. Marcus nodded to Linda, who opened her laptop and connected it to the lobby's large display screen. Actually, it can be, and it is. But before we continue this conversation, I'd like to play back some recordings that might sound familiar to you. The screen came to life, and Sarah's own voice filled the lobby. Did you see that? So unprofessional. They really should send someone more presentable. The recording continued, playing clip after clip of their discriminatory behavior. With each new recording, Sarah, Jenny, and Mike seemed to shrink smaller and smaller. Their faces showed a mix of horror, shame, and fear as they realized that every cruel word, every mocking gesture, and every discriminatory action had been documented. And it's not just my experience, Marcus continued, his voice firm but controlled. I've spoken with 23 other delivery workers who have faced similar treatment in this office. The systematic discrimination stops today. Sarah tried to speak, but Marcus held up his hand. Save your explanations, Ms. Williams. This isn't just about me. This is about every person who walks through those doors deserving to be treated with respect, regardless of their job, their appearance, or their race. The board members behind Marcus nodded in agreement, their expressions stern. The legal team had already opened their briefcases, pulling out documents that would begin the formal process of addressing the discrimination. But your delivery uniform? Jenny managed to squeak out. Yes, my uniform, Marcus said, straightening his suit jacket. A uniform doesn't determine a person's worth, Ms. Cooper. Neither does their job title, their skin color, or their accent. That's the lesson you all failed to learn. Sarah slumped into her chair, the reality of the situation finally hitting her. The CEO she had been so eager to impress had witnessed her worst behavior firsthand. Every snide remark, every deliberate delay, every discriminatory action had been observed and recorded by the very person who now held the future of her career in his hands. The lobby remained silent except for the soft sound of Linda taking notes. The day of reckoning had arrived at Stellar Corp, and nothing would ever be the same. The next few hours at Stellar Corp passed in a blur of activity. Security guards quietly escorted Sarah, Jenny, and Mike to separate conference rooms where HR representatives waited to begin formal interviews. The usual buzz of office conversation had been replaced by a heavy silence as employees tried to process what had just happened. Marcus sat in what had been Sarah's office, reviewing personnel files with Linda and the legal team. The windows offered a view of the lobby where shell-shocked employees whispered in small groups, stealing glances at the office door. The immediate suspensions will affect 7 employees, Linda reported, organizing documents into folders. Sarah Williams, Jenny Cooper, Mike Peterson, and 4 others who were directly involved in discriminatory practices. Marcus nodded, reading through the incident reports. Make sure they understand this isn't an immediate termination. They'll have a chance to learn from this, but first, they need to understand the gravity of their actions. In the largest conference room, Sarah sat alone, staring at her reflection in the black screen of her phone. Her perfect makeup was streaked with tears, and her designer blazer seemed to weigh heavily on her shoulders. Through the glass walls, she could see her colleagues being called one by one into different rooms for questioning. The door opened, and a woman from HR entered with a thick folder. Ms. Williams, we need to discuss your role in fostering a discriminatory workplace environment. She placed a laptop on the table and pulled up the video recordings. We'll start by reviewing these incidents. Meanwhile, in another room, Jenny couldn't stop crying as she listened to her own voice making cruel jokes about delivery workers. The HR representative pushed a box of tissues toward her while continuing to take detailed notes. Mike sat in his conference room, pale and sweating, as two members of the legal team explained the serious nature of his actions. Discriminatory behavior in the workplace isn't just against company policy, one lawyer explained. It can have legal consequences. Back in Sarah's former office, Marcus reviewed the new policies that would be implemented immediately. Every employee will undergo mandatory sensitivity and anti-discrimination training, he told his team. We're also establishing an anonymous reporting system and hiring a diversity and inclusion officer for each branch. Linda added another document to his desk. The delivery workers who came forward with their stories. They're all waiting to hear what happens next. Marcus picked up his phone and dialed a number. Mr. Thompson? This is Marcus Johnson. Yes, about your experience at Stellar Corp. I want you to know that your voice has been heard, and actions are being taken. Would you be willing to help us develop our new sensitivity training program? Throughout the afternoon, a parade of shocked employees was called in for interviews. Many broke down crying when shown evidence of their behavior, while others tried to defend their actions before falling silent when faced with the recordings. By evening, security began escorting the suspended employees out of the building. Sarah was the last to leave, her high heels no longer clicking with confidence against the marble floor. As she waited for the elevator, she caught a glimpse of Marcus in what had been her office, now speaking with a group of delivery workers who had been invited to share their experiences. Your personal belongings will be packed and sent to your home, the HR representative told her. During your suspension, you'll be required to complete extensive training on workplace discrimination, cultural sensitivity, and professional ethics. Your return to work will depend on your progress and demonstrated change in behavior. The elevator doors opened, and Sarah stepped in, clutching her purse like a shield. As the doors closed, she saw Marcus watching her departure, his expression not angry or triumphant, but determined and purposeful. In his temporary office, Marcus turned to Linda. Schedule a company-wide meeting for tomorrow morning. Every employee needs to understand that this isn't just about punishing a few people, it's about changing the entire culture. As the sun set over the city, the maintenance staff began removing Sarah's nameplate from the office door. The first day of consequences had ended, but the real work of transformation was just beginning at Stellar Corp. 6 months had passed since the day Marcus revealed his true identity at Stellar Corp. The office lobby, once a place of discrimination and hostility, had transformed into a welcoming space. New signs in multiple languages welcomed visitors, and the security desk was staffed by a diverse team trained in respectful customer service. Marcus walked through the front doors, wearing one of his usual business suits. Employees greeted him with genuine smiles, not out of fear but respect. The changes he had implemented were showing real results. At the morning meeting, he sat with the new management team, including James Thompson, the former delivery worker who now served as the head of diversity and inclusion. The conference room walls displayed framed certificates showing the company's recent awards for workplace excellence and cultural transformation. Our anonymous reporting system has been very effective, James reported, showing slides on the large screen. In the past month, we've had 0 complaints about discrimination. That's down from 37 complaints in the first month after the changes. Linda, who had been promoted to chief of staff, added more positive news. The mandatory sensitivity training has been completed by all employees, but more importantly, we're seeing people voluntarily signing up for additional cultural awareness workshops. The most surprising transformation, however, had come from an unexpected source. Sarah Williams, after completing her 3-month suspension and extensive training, had requested to return to work in a different role. She now sat at the meeting table, noticeably changed from the person she had been 6 months ago. I'd like to share our latest initiative, Sarah said, her voice humble but confident. We developed a mentorship program pairing our delivery workers with office staff. It helps break down barriers and builds understanding between different roles in the company. Marcus nodded approvingly. Sarah's transformation had been genuine. After facing the consequences of her actions, she had thrown herself into learning and changing. Her experience had become a powerful example for others. During lunch, Marcus visited the break room where delivery workers now ate alongside office staff. The segregated atmosphere of the past was gone. He watched as Jenny, also back from suspension, shared a table with Maria, the Hispanic delivery worker she had once told to use the back entrance. The changes aren't just on paper, Linda commented, walking with Marcus through the office. People's attitudes are really shifting. They passed by Mike's old desk, now occupied by Ahmad, the Middle Eastern delivery worker who had faced discrimination. After showing strong leadership qualities, Ahmad had been promoted to operations manager, proving that talent could be found at all levels when people were given fair opportunities. The afternoon brought a special ceremony in the lobby. Marcus stood before the assembled staff to unveil a new plaque on the wall. It read, "Respect for all, every person, every role, every day." Below it hung photos of the company's diverse workforce, including delivery workers, office staff, and executives all together. 6 months ago, Marcus addressed the crowd. This lobby was a place where some people felt unwelcome and disrespected. Today, it's a place where everyone is valued, regardless of their job title, appearance, or background. The employees applauded, many with tears in their eyes. Among them stood former delivery workers who had been promoted to various positions, their success stories proving that talent had no uniform. In her new role as Community Outreach Coordinator, Sarah had organized a company-wide celebration of diversity for the afternoon. The office was filled with music, food from different cultures, and displays celebrating the various backgrounds of their employees. "I never thought I'd say this," Sarah told Marcus quietly during the celebration, "but being suspended was the best thing that could have happened to me. It forced me to confront my prejudices and change." As the day ended, Marcus watched employees leaving together, chatting and laughing naturally. The artificial barriers of position and prejudice had crumbled, replaced by genuine relationships and mutual respect. "The transformation isn't complete," he told Linda as they prepared to leave. "But we're building something special here. Every person who walks through those doors now has a real chance to be seen for who they are, not just what they wear or what job they do." The lights dimmed in the lobby, but the plaque continued to shine, a constant reminder of how far they had come and the values they now stood for. 1 year had passed since the day Marcus Johnson walked into Stellar Corp as a CEO rather than a delivery man. The company's story had spread far beyond its walls, becoming a case study in corporate transformation and workplace equality. On this particular morning, Marcus stood in the lobby watching a familiar scene unfold, but with a very different atmosphere. Sarah Williams, now the company's chief of diversity and inclusion, was greeting a group of business students who had come to learn about Stellar Corp's remarkable change. "Welcome, everyone," Sarah said, her voice warm and genuine. "A year ago, I stood in this very spot as a different person, treating people differently based on their jobs and appearances. Today, I'm here to share how this company taught me, and many others, the true meaning of respect and dignity." The students listened intently as Sarah led them through the building. They stopped at a wall covered with photographs labeled "Our Journey." The first photo showed the old lobby with its strict hierarchical atmosphere. Next to it hung a picture of Marcus in his delivery uniform, followed by photos documenting the company's transformation. In the main conference room, James Thompson, now a senior executive, was leading a training session for managers from other companies. "The uniform doesn't make the person," he was saying. "Some of our best leaders came from delivery routes, security posts, and maintenance teams." Linda approached Marcus with the latest company reports. "Our success has caught national attention," she said proudly. 5 major corporations have asked us to help implement similar changes in their offices." The morning's biggest event was about to begin in the assembly hall. Employees gathered to celebrate the first anniversary of what they now called the transformation. The room was packed with people from all levels of the company, their seating mixed without regard to job titles or positions. Marcus took the stage, looking out at the diverse crowd. 1 year ago, he began, this company learned a powerful lesson about judging people. Today, we're not just a better workplace, we're a model for others to follow. He gestured to the front row, where several familiar faces sat. Jenny, who now ran the mentorship program for new employees, smiled proudly. Mike, who had become an advocate for workplace equality after his suspension, nodded in agreement. Both had transformed their past mistakes into motivation for positive change. "But our story isn't just about changing a few people's attitudes," Marcus continued. "It's about creating a lasting legacy of respect and understanding." The proof of his words was everywhere. The company's delivery workers now had clear paths to advancement, with many holding management positions. The once rigid hierarchy had been replaced by a culture of mutual respect and opportunity. After the ceremony, Marcus walked through the office, stopping to chat with employees. He passed Ahmad's office, where the former delivery worker was now conducting job interviews, ensuring that candidates were evaluated based on their abilities, not their backgrounds. In the break room, Maria, now a department supervisor, was having lunch with a mixed group of office staff and delivery workers. The conversation flowed naturally, with no trace of the old prejudices that once divided them. Sarah caught up with Marcus as he headed to his next meeting. "You know," she said, "sometimes I look back at who I was a year ago, and I can hardly recognize that person." Marcus smiled. The best leaders are those who can learn from their mistakes and help others avoid making the same ones. As the day ended, Marcus stood in the lobby one last time, watching employees leave together, regardless of their positions or backgrounds. The company's transformation had created ripples far beyond its walls, inspiring other businesses to examine their own cultures and practices. On his desk lay a stack of letters from other companies asking for guidance in creating similar changes. Stellar Corp had become more than just a success story. It had become a blueprint for workplace equality. The legacy we're creating, Marcus told Linda as they prepared to leave, isn't just about one company or one group of people. It's about showing the world that real change is possible when people open their minds and hearts. As the lights dimmed in the lobby, the wall of photographs continued to tell their story, a story of transformation, redemption, and the lasting power of treating every person with dignity and respect.